Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to an updated mod spotlight for Thaumcraft. Thaumcraft has now been updated to version 4.2, so this is Thaumcraft 4 and it's version 4.2 and it's got a ton of new stuff in it. Lots of new toys and gadgets, a couple new mechanics, and a few things that I think are going to be pretty cool to check out. So I'm really excited to show you all the new stuff in Thaumcraft 4. We got to get started because there's a ton to cover. Let's take a look. Alright guys, one of the very first things to introduce you to is a new mechanic called Warp. Now, I've already kind of talked about this a little bit in my Let's Play series on the Forgecraft stuff, and a couple people got a little bit afraid thinking like this was a nerf or some really bad thing. Warp is actually a really neat mechanic, and you guys are going to check it out and have fun with it, I think. So you should first know that Warp is not like a scary thing that you need to be worried about. What it is that it's basically a bit of a negative effect for some of the researches that you can find in here, but it's going to give you access to a lot of really cool stuff once you've gotten a bunch of Warp built up. It's also going to have some negative effects, but those can be mitigated later down the line with some of the items that you're going to be able to make. So what you can see here, it says that researching forbidden magics or crafting objects of questionable nature tends to distort a thaumaturgist's view of reality, twisting both their minds and their bodies. This effect is called warp. It says, while some warp gained is temporary and will fade over time, there's no known way to get rid of the permanent warp. Once it is gained in a thaumaturgist who chooses to ignore the dangers in pursuit of power often finds himself on a slippery slope. So basically, warp is going to happen when you do either research or craft certain items. Now luckily, it's really obvious to figure out which researches can give you the warp effect. Let's take a look at the research expertise here. And then once you've unlocked that, you'll see Research Mastery has this little smoky effect behind it. When you complete that research, you'll notice that it says it's forbidden knowledge and it's mostly harmless, which means it's not going to be a terribly large amount of warp that you're going to get from it, but you will get some, and you'll notice on the bottom right hand corner here it's indicating that I've just gained some warp. That means that my player is now permanently affected with a small amount of warp. By the way, for the purposes of this spotlight, I've cheated in myself some aspects, and I'm going to be doing all research by clicking. This is just a config option. You're still going to do research through the table unless you modify it with the config. So research has not changed, it's just that for the purposes of this spotlight, I made a change to the way research is done via the configs. So down here in the Artifice tab, we'll also notice the Infernal Furnace has a minor amount of warp. It's not a huge amount. It's not quite as small an amount as the Mostly Harmless one. I guess minor's worse than Mostly Harmless, but you will get a minor amount of warp from doing that research. And you'll notice just by completing research, I've gained warp. Now, most researches like the Infernal Furnace will only give you warp when you do the research. However, other items like this case, the flesh golems, you'll get warp and a moderate amount of it at that whenever you do the research, but also when you craft the flesh golem. So any flesh golem you craft will wind up getting you a little bit of warp. So now that we've talked about the warp a little bit, we haven't seen any of the warp effects just yet, but there are some to be seen, and we'll see them soon because we're about to use the cheat sheet Thermonomicon. I'm going to use this, and what it's going to do is it's going to unlock all the researches in the game for me. It's a cheat sheet, creative mode only item that you guys have seen me use in the past in Spotlights. This is also going to apply all the warp effects to me as well. So, dun dun dun, you'll notice that I just gained a bunch of warp. Yeah, that happened. So you'll note now that not only do we have a bunch of stuff unlocked here, and you'll get to see what some of the warps are, some of them being harmless, some of them not so much, like, you know, the Wand Focus of 9 Hells, minor amount of warp, not too terrible. If we head down to Alchemy here, Liquid Death. Oh, that sounds terrible. Moderate amount of warp in that. So lots of cool stuff that you can check out, right? But you'll note that there's also a new tab, the Eldritch tab. This tab will only unlock once you've gone ahead and gotten a bunch of warp. So you do need to get a lot of warp on your character before the Eldritch tab will unlock. Typically, doing all the research in the Thermonomicon that has a warp effect on it should be enough to get you that warp. Maybe do a few bits of crafting afterwards, we'll see. So we'll note here that the Eldritch tab has a bunch of crazy stuff going on. So this is the tab that's going to unlock some of the more advanced stuff available in Thaumcraft 4.2. You'll note that the Primal Focus here is available, also the Staff Core of the Primal. These used to be on a different tab, but then there's some other new items like Eldritch Epiphany, First Steps into the Unknown. Ooh, that sounds dangerous. And Eldritch Revelation. Ooh, craziness. So lots of nifty, crazy things that are part of Warp. And Warp is a new mechanic and will be expanded further down the line. There's Void Fortress Armor, which is some very powerful armor that is available to you, as well as Void Metal and Void Metal Wand Caps. These wand caps are pretty neat. So that about covers the warp effects. You'll see some of them just randomly throughout the course of this spotlight, and I'll also try and make sure a couple of the really cool ones are made visible to you during the spotlight, but we'll kind of see what happens as we go through. Now the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is aura nodes. Aura nodes have changed just a little bit. One of the things to note is that aura nodes can now merge with each other, and then we'll check out how this happens. All you have to do is have a couple of aura nodes nearby. So I'm going to grab just a stack out of the creative mode only aura nodes, creative mode only, and make sure I have some goggles of revealing on me. Cool. When you have two aura nodes that happen to be somewhat nearby to each other, they're going to start to, let's say, merge with each other. And what happens here is the larger node will drain energy out of the smaller node. So we've got a bit of air here. So let's get a empty wand if I can. I don't know if I can easily snag that. How about a staff? That might be a good idea. So I've drained my wand just a little bit here. You'll notice that I'm a little bit low on the air aspect. If I drain this out of here, you'll notice that one of the things that these nodes will do is this node will kind of recharge itself because it's a little bit larger than this node. This has a total aspect count of something like 70, and this one has a total aspect count of almost 100, a little bit more than 100. So this guy being the larger node, he's going to possibly drain some of the aspects out of this node. Now, it's not a very efficient process, and you will wind up losing many of the aspects that were in the smaller node. So you really want to avoid having these two nodes near each other. I'm kind of waiting for the node interaction to occur here. If I throw a few more down, we might actually... There we go. So those sparks that happen, those are the nodes kind of draining from each other. So you'll notice that this node now has a bit of Perdito in it. So the nodes are kind of interacting with each other, sharing their aspects. Aspects are getting absorbed into the larger of the nodes. So the larger the node is, the more it's going to kind of drain out from the other nodes. And eventually you'll wind up with one large node over a long period of time. But like I said, you will lose some of the aspects that were part of the nodes. It won't be like a perfect match. So when you come over to this one here, you won't see 57 Ignis in this node. You'll see a much smaller number than that. Okay, so in order to prevent this, we're going to have to look at a technology that's new in Thaumcraft called node stabilization. So you'll note a node stabilizer here, which is an arcane workbench recipe, but does require quite a bit of aspects in your wand. So you'll probably need at least a wand that can store about 50 V each. The node stabilizer is a nifty device. It stabilizes your nodes. It prevents the nodes from draining V from other nodes or being drained in turn. It also prevents unstable nodes from losing their V and has a tiny chance of eventually removing the unstable condition completely. And it has a very, very small chance of turning fading nodes into pale nodes. So basically, it stabilizes your nodes. It makes them stronger, and it prevents them from sharing their energy. The one downside to the node stabilizer is it cuts in half the normal recharge rate of the node itself. So it doesn't recharge quite as quickly. And applying a redstone signal will switch the node stabilizer off. So let's take a look. Oh, I just had a warp effect. So that darkening of the screen edges, by the way, was a warp effect. It was a minor one, a very simple and minor one, but a warp effect nonetheless. So let's get a node stabilizer. And let's take a look at this. You'll also notice there's an advanced node stabilizer, which I'll get to in a minute. All right. Ta-da! By having a node in there, and by the way, you would normally put a node in a jar on that, you'll notice that the node stabilizer is now activated. Cool. So if we place a couple node stabilizers nearby of each other, I'm going to grab another one right here. You'll notice that they are no longer going to share V and do all that stuff that they were doing when they don't have node stabilizers near them. So the advanced node stabilizer is a little bit different. It's going to not only prevent the node that's in it from losing power, but it's also going to allow it to accept power. So normal node stabilizers cannot transmit power to nodes nearby, whether they're stabilized or not. So these guys will never attempt to share power. The two here will try to share power with each other, but the one inside the node won't interact with them at all. With an advanced node stabilizer, which I'll put over here, the one inside the node, dun dun dun, will be able to draw some of the aspects out of the original, or the node that's outside the stabilizer. So this guy can steal from this guy. This one won't interact with anybody. And it also has a better chance of repairing the nodes. So you'll see that he's drawing power from this guy now. Pretty cool, right? You'll note, though, like I said, overwhelmingly bright and burning skin. I've got Sunscorned. So as you can see, Sunscorned is one of the, let's say, negative warp effects. It's going to, and again, I have a lot of warp right now because I did that cheat mode thing. It's going to cause you to get lit on fire anytime you're in an extremely bright area. And it'll also cause the screen color change here that you're seeing. That's better. So back to the advanced node stabilizer. So while that does allow the node here to draw effects and be out of this aura node and not be drained itself, the downside to this is that it's going to cost even more energy to maintain this, basically completely negating the rechargeability. So any node that's currently in an advanced node stabilizer will not be able to recharge. So what you might want to use this for is, say that you want this guy to be like the king node with a ton of different aspects in it, right? So just go get all your aspects, put it around the one that has the advanced node stabilizer on it, and eventually you're guaranteed that this one is going to be the one to have all the cool stuff in it. Nice, right? And then when it's done, you can remove the advanced node stabilizer and just put a normal one there. Cool. Not a bad plan. Now another thing that you can do with V and nodes, which is completely new, is the node transducer, aka harnessing V. This is a very powerful device, and I'm going to show you what it does. Basically, it turns an aura node, instead of what it normally is, into a slow but sure generation of V that can power different machines and different things. Let's take a look. So first things first, you want to get a node stored on your node stabilizer. Cool. So that one has the air aspect on it. I don't like that one. Let's find a better one. This one's pretty good. It's got Ignis, Perdito, and air. Cool. Once we've got that, then we can get a node transducer. This needs to go on top of your node, like so. And then you need to apply a redstone signal to it. Like so. Ta-da! And you'll note now that this node transducer has expanded itself, and it's actually gotten rid of all the V in the node. Hey, why would you do that? Don't worry, there's a reason. Alright, the process is completed. So once the node transducer completes its process, which takes a minute or two, we've now got an energized aura node. You can see that's what Whale is telling us at the top. And it has a small amount of V in it. What happened to all the V in there? Don't worry, you'll see. You can now use this energized aura node to go ahead and charge up and manage machines. So you'll note here that I just placed down a V relay, and you'll note that it's also connected to my energized aura node. Fancy. That's pretty cool. Note that you can only see that line there pretty well when you've got the goggles of revealing on. Cool. What can we do with this aura node? Well, why don't we take a look. One of the things that we're going to be able to do with it, I'm going to drain my wand a little bit. So like I said, this will now power anything nearby that you want. One thing that you might be able to power with it is a wand in an arcane workbench. As we know, anytime we do any crafting in an arcane workbench, it's going to drain power out of this wand, and it's always annoying to have to go recharge that wand when you want to do whatever you want to do in your arcane workbench. Well, now you can make yourself the V charge relay. This guy, which you can see is a pretty easy thing to craft, can go ahead and just sit right on top of your arcane workbench. Boom. And you'll note now that it's suddenly charging up the wand. You'll see here, slowly but surely, constantly supplying a charge of V to that wand. So one thing also to note, though, is that the air and Ignis are getting charged, but the aqua is not. The reason for that is because this node doesn't have any aqua in it. So what you're going to want to do is either get one or two nodes that have all 6 aspects, or if you're really good about it, you can go ahead and use the system that we saw over here to go ahead and get one node that has all 6 aspects in it. So you see here, this guy's already got 5 aspects because I put a bunch of nodes nearby and they've been getting eaten up. This node has nothing left in it, so he's going to be lost pretty soon. So make sure to creatively get yourself a bunch of nodes, or a bunch of aspects in your node. And the more aspects there are, the faster it can recharge things. So that's one thing that we can power with this new energized node system. What else can we do? Well, let's take a look. As you guys may recall, the Arcane Furnace is a nifty little gadget that can draw from fire aspects in jars nearby to make it run faster. Let's take a look. Ta-da! You'll note now that just a little bit of fire just dropped itself into that infernal furnace right off of that V relay. Cool. Let's go ahead and get this thing smelting something. What do you say? So I'm just going to drop some cobblestone in there, and we'll see what happens. Dun 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 dun. You'll notice that there's now a bunch of red energy flowing into the furnace, causing it to smelt things faster. Cool. Now I don't have the bellows on there, but that'll also increase the speed. There we go. So lots of energy flowing into this thing, trying to get it to smelt faster, just like if you had placed a jar with Ignis nearby, but instead of using up the Ignis from the jar, it's just draining some of the Ignis aspect out of the energized node. Very cool. And one final note is if you want to prevent two of these V relays from connecting to each other, you can tune them with some shards. Just right click on them with a shard and you'll notice that it's now tuned red. He can now interact with any other Ignis V relays or non-tuned relays. If I tune this guy blue, you'll note that these guys are no longer interacting, but he can pull from this guy because I think the radius is about 8 blocks. Pretty neat. And of course you can tune this guy if you want as well. Very cool. And you can see here, so you can detect and control where the flow of energy occurs. Very cool. I like it. So one more thing to note, Ignis jars will no longer work near the Inferno Furnace, but if you want to, you can still pipe it in. You can pipe it into any one of the 3 holes that the Arcane Bellows goes on, or if you want, you can go ahead and check out underneath here. I'll show you guys that there's a new hole on the bottom. You cannot put a bellows here, but if you wanted to, you could go ahead and pipe in some of the V that goes in there. So you could hook up Essentia tubes here and fill it up with Ignis. So those are the 2 ways to get Ignis into the Infernal Furnace now. I definitely like this method because it's basically, once you've got this set up, it's always going to supply it with all the Ignis it needs. So one of the other new items / mechanics available in Thaumcraft 4 are baubles. You'll find that there's a bunch of different baubles available to you. If we go through here, we'll look through the artifice. If you recall from previous versions of Thaumcraft, there was a way to get Rune Shielding, which basically made your character have a powerful shield that protected them from damage for a little while. Instead of that being a piece of armor now, it's actually a bauble. So if we take a look, we'll notice that there's a Rune Shielding ring and an amulet and a girdle that each give different amounts of runic shielding. So instead of actually having to wear this as new armor that replaces your existing armor, you can actually make these things. So let's take a look. If we were to get ourselves some runic shielding items, we can take a look at what they can do. So Ring of Runic Shielding +5, Amulet of Runic Shielding +8, and then there's a couple different ones like the Revitalizing and Charged. So the Charged Ring of Runic Shielding here has different minor abilities like this. So this one increases the recharge time of Runic Shielding, whereas the Revitalizing one gives you regenerative energy whenever the shield is broken. So basically you get a regen effect whenever your shield is completely broken down. Amulet of Emergency Shielding. This is another upgraded amulet that when the shield is broken, it'll instantly recharge it up to 8. So different shields, pretty similar to the previous system that we saw earlier, but instead of it being armor that you wear, it's baubles. So where do we equip these things? I'll show you. If you open up your inventory by using the B key, B as in baubles by default, you'll see a slightly different inventory screen. Also, I believe it's Botania is the mod that adds a button here that allows you to toggle between the two, but this is not part of regular Thaumcraft by itself. So all you have to do is equip your items in this new little inventory slot. So you'll notice that your runic shielding rings can go right here. Cool. And you can also equip your amulets and your girdles if you want. And those are the 4 slots that you now have available. And you'll notice now, of course, that I've got runic shielding on my character. Pretty cool. And that's charging itself up right now. Nice. So I've got a decent little runic shield going on, pretty similar to the items I had before, the armor, but now the runic shielding is in bauble form, and I can wear whatever other armor I want. It won't, impact the armor that I'm wearing. Now, one of the other baubles that's available to you is this nifty gadget, the Amulet of V Storage. You'll note that as I'm standing near one of these nodes here, it's slowly recharging this thing for me, which is very useful. If I walk away from it, on the other hand, it's no longer charging. What this can do for you is you'll note that my wand is recharging. If you look at my air and my Ignis, you'll see it slowly recharging from that nifty gadget right there. So basically, it's a little bit of a battery for your wand. When you have this equipped, it will slowly but surely infuse your wand with whatever it has. It has a capacity of 250 V, so it's basically like a nice little augment to the amount of V you have. And again, when you stand near one of these energized nodes, you'll note that it's going to quickly refill itself for you. Let's see, maybe I have to be over here near one of these guys. There we go. Now it's filling up. So you can see them filling up. Again, you're going to need to make sure that whatever node you're set up with has all the primal aspects on it. So if you have an energy network inside your base, it might not be a bad idea to make sure you have one of these so that it's constantly refilling the amulet whenever you're at your base, and the amulet will constantly be refilling your wand. Cool. Now, one of the things you're going to want to get once you've got a lot of warp going on is this stuff, purifying bath salts. Let's grab a few because I could really use it. Purifying bath salts are a nifty little thing that you can go ahead and use to make sure to help to prevent warp effects. All you need to use these is drop the purifying bath salts into some water, and slowly but surely those bath salts will dissolve and give you something very nice to hang out in. Let's take a look. Come on, bath salts. There you go. Nice. Ta-da! And when you jump in there, you get the warp ward. You'll notice that this lasts for a decent amount of time. So this helps to mitigate or prevent warp effects while this buff is on your player. Obviously, these things are a little bit expensive to craft, but not terrible. I mean, it's just a little bit of a crucible thing and some Salus Mundus. Not bad at all. So these things are definitely nice to have on hand, especially once you get a lot of warp. The other thing to note is the more warp currently on your player, the shorter the duration. I have a decent amount of warp on me right now, which is why it's at about 24 minutes. I'm guessing if you have a small amount of warp, that you will have a longer duration of that. So, I saw this entry in the Thermonomicon and I couldn't resist checking it out. Liquid Death. So dangerously toxic, it'll basically dissolve anything that it comes into contact with. Well, anything living, that is. You don't have to worry about your items if they fall in there. However, if we had some kind of monster, like maybe a zombie, and we wanted to make sure that he dies very quickly and painfully, we can go ahead and get ourselves some of this Liquid Death. Let's go ahead and drop some in this pit here and make sure that the zombie can't get out. Go, zombie, go. So you'll notice that he's taking some damage as he's sitting in the Liquid Death there, and eventually he's going to die. So this is a nice mechanic for automatically killing mobs. Let's see what happens when he dies. Dun dun dun. What's this? Ooh, he drops some crystallized essence. Cool. So this is a similar crystallized essence to the type of stuff you would get from mana beans. So remember, mana beans, you could just use them for whatever you want. So this crystallized essence is pretty useful. Now remember, what's the best about this thing is that, let's grab our thermometer here and just demonstrate why we got the essence we got. If we were to take a look at a zombie, for example, we'll notice that he is made up of those aspects that we got. So basically the aspects that are on the creature that gets killed helps to influence the aspects that you'll get in crystallized essence form. Pretty cool. Speaking of mana beans, there has been a bit of a change to them. Unfortunately, mana beans have been a little bit nerfed. But to be honest with you, it's probably a good idea because they were pretty overpowered. One thing to note, and I'm basically going to explain this because it'll be a little bit hard to demonstrate by finding them in the wild. I'd have to find the right biome for them. Mana beans can be found in the wild still. However, the only mana beans you're going to find in the wild are those with primal aspects on it. So if we were to look at the aspect list, anything that's a primal aspect, like aqua and air, are going to be found in the wild. If you want, for example, a nicer aspect to be made out of it, it's easy to do. All you have to do is plant the aspect of air and, aqua or whatever you want near each other, and it'll give you the chance. So, for example, if you placed a primal aspect Ignis mana bean next to an air mana bean, you might eventually get a Lux mana bean when they grow to full size. So that's how you can work your way towards getting some cool mana beans. It's a nice little farming mechanic, but mana beans were, in fairness, a little bit overpowered. They weren't really always intended to be what we always used them for. So one of the nifty new sets of items that are available are listed right here, Thaumium Fortress Armor. Remember that the Thaumium Armor was iron equivalent. These are diamond equivalent. And they're also just even better when you wear them all together. So it's a pretty nifty gadget. And you can also go ahead and upgrade them a little bit. So let's first off check out what they look like by themselves. Oh yeah, how cool does that look? Really nice looking armor, if I do say so myself. Wow. That looks awesome, doesn't it? So that stuff is very cool, and it's going to give you a lot of protection. However, there are some upgrades you can get. Let's take a look. If we were to get the Grinning Devil faceplate, which is an upgrade to the Thaumium Fortress helm, it's an infusion process which is pretty expensive. It's going to dampen the effect of those suffering from warp. It doesn't reduce the number of warp events you get, so you'll still get them as often as you normally would. However, it does reduce their severity, so you won't get as bad warp effects as you would without this. You can also get the Angry Ghost faceplate. Whenever you're struck in combat, the creature striking you has a chance to get the Withering effect. Me and Soren, we're going to have fun with that one. The Sipping Fiend faceplate will go ahead and heal the player from anything that gets attacks them. So if a creature hits you, you're going to steal their life force to heal yourself a little bit. Pretty cool. So that is the Thaumium Fortress Armor, and it's pretty nifty. If we were to look at, for example, the Grinning faceplate, you'll note that it's really just an update to the helm. It's not a separate item that you're going to get. So now that we've got those guys sorted out, let's take a look at some of the Eldritch research. You'll note that there's Void Fortress Armor. This stuff is pretty much an improvement on the other armor. So in order to get Void Metal, you just need to get a Void Seed and throw it into a Crucible. Void Seeds are regular seeds with Alienus, Tenebrae, and Vacuous. Cool. And this is the way you get Void Metal Wand Caps and Void Fortress Armor, which is even better and crazier than the previous armor we saw. However, there is some kind of side effect, it looks like. You're going to have to figure out what that is for yourself. Keep in mind, the Eldritch tab is completely unavailable to you and will not be shown on your Thermonomicon until you have enough warp built up on your character. So you won't even see this tab until you have a lot of warp. So don't be surprised if it's not there in a brand new world. So with that, guys, I think it about wraps up. There's a few things I haven't shown you, but that's on purpose. You're going to have to check it out for yourself. There's a few warp effects you didn't quite yet get to see, but there's a lot of cool things that warp can bring. As you notice, you get this whole new Eldritch Research tab, and this is, of course, brand new to the mod. So there's a few things in here now. I would absolutely expect a few more gadgets and toys to show up in this tab eventually. I definitely like the new energy system and the node stabilization system. You'll note that this node over here that we've been leaving all around, the node that was in front and behind it are both gone now. The node on the side is pretty much completely drained, and the node over here not drained yet, but I'm sure it will be eventually. And this thing has started building up lots and lots of V. And this energy transport system I think is also really cool. So for now, Direwolf20 signing off. Hope you enjoyed checking out Thaumcraft version 4.2, and take it easy!